I am the daughter of a billionaire, ask me anything. Have you ever given money to someone just because you overheard from someone or saw in a newspaper or something that they lost their house, or had no medical insurance to cover some expensive treatment, or maybe didn't have enough money to go to college? One time I was in a grocery store and the woman in front of me didn't have enough to pay, so I paid for them and ended up talking to her for a while and found out her husband had passed away and she had 3 young children and was working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I got her information and told my dad, and he hired her as his assistant secretary and gave her full health insurance and makes sure she's home every day to pick up her kids from school. I've never been so proud of my dad than the day he hired her. Do you hide the fact that your father is very rich when meeting new people, or is it just impossible to hide? I can imagine it would come up after very short amounts of time. Thanks for doing this, Amma, by the way. I don't hide it, but I also don't advertise it. It all really depends on the conversation I'm having. If I'm talking about favorite movies with someone, it won't come up as quickly as it would if we were discussing favorite past vacation spots. Have any of your friendships been destroyed over money? Not until college. I went to a prestigious private school growing up, so everyone had money, so it wasn't a huge aspect in our lives in the sense that it was just commonplace for everyone to have access to the same things. In college, people found out I came from a wealthy family, and it would lead to awkward moments like people expecting me to pick up the tab at dinner, or that it was my responsibility to invite everyone to our vacation homes for spring break. You definitely feel used by certain people and you just have to cut them out. Being a busy, wealthy businessman, was your father there? Do you have a good relationship with him? He made it a point to be home every night for dinner. Sometimes he would leave and go back to work right after, but that time was very special to me. He also always remembered all my events, like if I had a lacrosse game he would ask me about it that night, even thought he couldn't make it. When I was really little he would wake me up when he got home, make sure I was really awake, then tell me he loved me and tuck me back in. Little things that always made me feel like he loved me and he was doing it all to make sure I was okay. How big is the house you grew up in? How many cars do your parents own? Private jet? Do you have famous friends? What is your take on Paris Hilton and those goddamn Kardashians? I grew up in a large house. 8 bedrooms, pool house, indoor and outdoor pools, that whole bit. My dad has 4 cars and my mom has 2. Yes, we have a jet that my dad mostly uses for business. Depends on who you think is famous. My dad knows more famous people than I do. I think the Kardashians are brilliant. They took 15 minutes of fame and built an empire. I don't like to judge people too harshly because you don't know them personally. If I met the Hiltons or Kardashians and they weren't pleasant, then I'd have more of an opinion. As for now, they're all laughing their way to the bank. What 5 things would you try to experience if you could be the opposite gender for a day? Peeing in snow, walking at night without being afraid, taking off my shirt whenever I wanted to, being able to wake up and walk out of the house without doing my hair or makeup. Probably just wiggling my junk around for a while. Is there anything you are envious about regarding people with less, normal income? I think there are aspects in life that might be a little easier if I came from a normal financial situation. I think society expects a lot more from the 1% and their children to make an impact in the world because we have a means to do so. I thrive on the pressure and I love helping people, but I can see where others might not enjoy that aspect. Focus on some negative aspects of your life. Mind, sorry, what does money couldn't buy for you recently? What are your biggest disappointment in your life, and in life in general for the planet? What would you do or would happen if the person you fell in love with was earning only about $30K per year? There are studies that shows rich people feel more entitled and are more narcissistic than average people. I don't think you are, since I like what I read in this AMA. How do you think you could avoid falling into this category, now and in the future? Time with family and friends you've lost. I have everything I could ever want, but I can't hang out with a friend who passed away 4 years ago. I think about that every day. I would give away half of everything I have to just hang out with him one more time. My biggest disappointment was not going to my grandfather's funeral because of a lacrosse game I wanted to play in. That was a shitty thing for me to do. In the planet, I don't think we care enough about each other. We seem to lack empathy and it's awful. Love him. Staying grounded. My parents raised me to remember that we are the 1%, which means 99% of the people don't get what I got handed, and I need to do everything I can to make the world a better place than when I found it. Good parenting, y'all. It works wonders. How old are you? Have you moved out? If so, did your dad pay for your house? Do you work and earn your own money, or does your dad give you money to live? Do you respect the value of money? Do you hope to make your own billions with a business plan of some sort one day? Did you get a lot of hate from peers growing up when they found out you and your family were rich? Do you think there are any unique hardships of being very rich that no one considers or knows about? I am 23. My trust pays my rent. I receive money to live and do not have to work right now. I like to think I do, but people who are struggling to put food on the table for their kids would slap me if I said that. I do not. No, I grew up in a bubble with other wealthy families. Not any worth even talking about. I am unbelievably lucky, and to cry about it is a waste of time. 2 questions from me. 1. Are you sure he's a billionaire? That's a pretty rare club. 2. Will you expect and/or will your parents continue to support you now that you're an adult? If you go into nursing, you'll earn a decent middle-class income. It would obviously take support from them to keep you in Land Rovers, nice homes, and fancy vacations. Just wondering if they've told you how they'll handle that? I didn't know he was until Forbes informed me. I have a trust fund that will support me for a while, but I intend on using that for big purchases like my first home and stuff like that. Hopefully I'm not too late for this one. This is coming from a lower middle class raised 17-year-old. How did your father begin building his wife wealth? The dream for my life is to grow wealthy so I can support my mom and dad with their financial troubles from them owning a failing restaurant. I've noticed that to make a lot of money you first have to have a lot of money. How do I get started? Where do I begin? If you need to PM me if the details are too much or anything, feel free. Without giving away too much of what he does, he busted his ass from the bottom. Started as an assistant, worked his way up, learned what he needed to know, then took money from his parents and started his own. My advice, as the child of someone who succeeded, not someone who succeeded herself, bust your ass. Get educated. So I'm about to become fairly well off after a business acquisition. Knock on wood, I came from virtually nothing, but by hard work am going to end up in a much better place financially. I have a 3-year-old girl who I love to pieces. I would like her to work for her money when she grows up, but I would almost feel guilty for not spoiling her. Did your father make you work for your money, or did good grades suffice? If no, would you have been offended if your father made you work for spending money? I was always really involved with sports and things at school. I really didn't have time for a job, but I did receive an allowance for good grades. My dad did things that upset me all the time to teach me a lesson in the long run. That's just parenting. Congrats on all your success, and hug your little girl extra hard for me. Little girls are the best things in the world.
I hope I'm not too late. Few questions. What is your religion, if you have any? Do you make financial decisions knowing that even if you make a mistake it will be all right? Or have you developed a reasonably self-sufficient method to handling your financials and do not take into account that you have a blanket? I've always wondered this about rich people's kids who don't go into the family business.
Loaded fashion questions. Sorry, are you into fashion? Do you shop at malls, or have you developed a taste for rare designer stuff? Those specialty stores that sell really expensive stuff that only a few can afford, are those places appealing to you? Are you generally turned off by label junkies? Do you see the value in following any brands for quality? Ever owned any crazy exotic pets? Without going into detail, was your father handed a business, or was he self-made? What is your deepest fear in life? How much bullshit or accuracy is Hollywood's perception of the dangers of being the child of a very rich parent, like people wanting to kidnap you for blackmail and stuff? Do you think that growing up with money has allowed you to overcome insecurities easier than maybe some of your friends with less money? Sorry if my questions sound lame or desperate. I reread them and they totally sound like they are. Sad face. Thanks for the good AMA, hun. I'm not religious, but I was raised Christian the first. Don't go into my finances that much. I have just started looking into investing, so we shall see. Very into fashion. I get some stuff at malls, but for the most part one have a stylist who gets me things. I don't like labels, but some designers are worth it. Louis Vuitton makes the best luggage around. Lasts forever. Nope. Just lots of golden doodles. Self-made. Burning to death. There were safety concerns when I was little. Had to have security tie around when traveling, stuff like that. I think everyone has insecurities and money won't fix that. Typing on an iPad, sorry for all the typos. Cool, thank you for the answers.